So listen, you just graduated with your MSW degree and you're kind of overwhelmed trying to figure out what's next in my career. Which route did I follow? Should I go get my LCSW? Should I go get this training? Should I go get this actual certificate? Should I get into community mental health? Whatever these different things are, you're overwhelmed and you're kind of trying to figure out what's next. Listen, I'm here to help, here to share some tips, strategies on different things you should think about when thinking about your post MSW journey and your actual career trajectory and what that should look like. It's not the end all be all, but it'll hopefully give you some foundational tips and strategy to think about as you think about moving forward with your MSW degree. So come on, let's go and check out the episode. All right, where's your boy Trey, retro underscore GT, Dr. Gary Trey Taylor, licensed clinical social worker, and I'm back for another episode of the G.Taylor Show. Also, like, share, subscribe to the channel, the G.Taylor Show on the YouTube channel. We are there. We have rolled to 1,000 subscribers. Also, all your digital streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we should be on it. And if not, please let us know. We appreciate all the support, everything that everybody's been supporting, liking, sharing, commenting, and reacting to the actual videos. We appreciate that. Continue to like and share. Matter of fact, share with 3 of your peers, somebody that you think would benefit from this video, from this content, from this page. We're just trying to make sure that we provide education to the community and also getting some lifestyle hobbies at the same time in the mix and show that social workers do look like us and also are diverse in the things that we like to do and talk about. Now, I wanted to talk about briefly. I woke up this morning and was thinking about some different topics and things that I think would be beneficial to the page. And there were some conversations that I've had over the past few weeks, especially related to some of my students, but also other peers and social workers around, how do I position myself, whether that's, post MSW degree, just got my doctorate degree, or I got my LCSW and I'm trying to figure out what's next, right? And we have these conversations in silos, maybe in our group chats or one-offs, but we never have them in academia, in the programs, right? Just, hey, get your degree, do this type of work, navigate the journey. Yay, you're a social worker, do your thing, right? So I want to let folks know, especially let you all as students, new social workers in the space, folks that's in the middle of your career as well, that we have a unique skill set that can position us for so many different roles and tasks. None of it always has to be super just direct care. It doesn't have to be. It just doesn't have to be community mental health. It doesn't have to be private practice. It doesn't have to be, psychiatric care. It can be so many other different things. It is up to you to position yourself, build the relationships, network, so that you can get those opportunities and then also become more specialized in practice. Again, MSW is our terminal degree. It's the only degree that you nearly need at the end to become a full-fledged social worker, right? Not the LCSW, not a DSW, not a PhD. You just need the MSW to be called an actual practicing social worker. Now, when it comes to LCSW, the license as a clinical piece, there's all that good stuff like that. Now, my career trajectory over the last 11 years in the profession of social work, I've been working in and out of the mental health field for 15 years. So my first introduction to the social work profession was not in social work. I started off with my bachelor's in psychology degree, and I worked in psychiatric inpatient for 2.5 years before starting my MSW degree. So I had previous experience. And in that time before I started my MSW degree and during it, I worked as a mental health tech on a psychiatric floor with men, women, and children. I then also, in the meantime, did some therapeutic day treatment and in-home counseling. Like I said, I didn't survive, right? So my frame of reference for what works and things of interest that I might be interested to me was started very early on before I even got into professional social work. And as a result, I got acclimated to what, psychiatric hospitalization, inpatient psych looks like. And that started me on the mental health side, right? And then that kind of gave birth to the different opportunities that I think come up today. Now, when I graduated my MSW degree, I went and started my MSW degree in 2012 and finished in 2015. Had an MSW degree for concentration in social policy and advocacy. Then went into crisis therapy or emergency services therapist, where I provided psychiatric assessments to determine if individuals met criteria for psychiatric care, which would then put them in psychiatric hospitals, either voluntary or involuntary. At that point in time, I was able to get to see the DSM-5 up close and personal, from textbook psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar, major depressive disorder, psychosis, substance use disorder. I've seen everything up close and personal. Everything we were taught in the DSM-5 class or your diagnosing class, I seen it up close and personal. But I'd already had history with it working inpatient as well, post, pre MSW. So I was familiar with it. But now I was looking at this other side of it. This other side of it also had policies attached to it, right? So policies of reference around involuntary commitment to psychiatric hospitals. How can we take somebody's rights temporarily because they're psychotic or they can't consent to treatment? What does that look like in a psychiatric setting? What does that look like in a medical setting? What does that look like in an ER setting, emergency room setting? How does that work with an interdisciplinary approach, working with nurses, psychiatrists, doctors, phlebotomy, intake, things like that, that exposed me to that, that actual interdisciplinary care and how social workers are so important in that process. From there, I started doing a lot of my psychoeducation workshops around mental health, psychoeducation around Black male mental health, community interventions, things like that. And then I left there and started working in substance use as a care coordinator, where I was providing resources to individuals who are getting Suboxone treatment and also helping facilitate treatment team meetings between doctors, nurses, social workers, you name it, the care coordination team. And that was giving more direct substance use primary population versus the mental health primary population and substance use secondary. And then, kind of seeing the co-occurring disorders, not just with mental health and substance use, but then also with medical conditions. So we had a lot of individuals with substance use, medical, and then psych together and psychiatric care as well. And so those different spaces. And then from there, ended up going into psychiatric, doing private practice, did private practice for 3.5 years, virtually during the pandemic. And that was a different beast, right? During the pandemic, not as a way to just, do whatever, but pandemic, to navigating the state of the world, how that impacts, treatment for our folks, but then also virtual, telehealth, insurance, all those different things. And so I did private practice about 3.5 years. From there, more speaking, more workshops, more engagements started to happen as I built my footprint as this person who was a subject matter expert in mental health, subject matter expert in working with Black men. And then that also projected me into conversations around cultural humility, DEI, you name it, that happened. And this is about from this 2015, again, it's a 10, 11 year period to now where I'm assistant professor. I teach now at the academic at the graduate school level. I manage the MSW program. I also provide clinical supervision to supervisees. And then I also supervise some students as well. And so we do a lot of mentoring and supervising in that aspect if they need that in that place, and still doing speaking and workshops and around the area. So this is my 10, 11 years social work career. And these are the different areas of practice that I've practiced in. Some areas I have never practiced in. I never, interfered in. I've always been around hospital systems or health systems. I will say that. And that was always because a lot of times in my area, the health systems are the large employers of workers, whether that's from social workers to doctors to nurses, all the way down to, EVS cleaning staff, food service. I worked food service for a majority of my life before I even got into the psychology and the social work realm. I mean, and that was at a hospital setting. So I did food service, for years, which I think was helpful in making me a good therapist or social worker because of customer service skills, right? So my trajectory, has a foundational piece in health systems, community health centers as well. I don't know what you might call them in certain areas, but for here we got community service boards. So those are our two things, right? You look at my resume, you look at my experiences. These are the two aspects that kind of lay the foundation for making me the social worker that I am today, right? So the piece that I think that students sometimes, or at least social workers miss sometimes, is the specialized experience. You get the MSW, got it. The general MSW is the generalist practice, well, more so specialized practice of the social work practice, a terminal degree. Boom, you step out here, you go get your job, you do your thing. And along the way, you're trying to figure out if I'm going to get my LCSW, then that's the other piece, the last piece of the clinical aspect to do the clinical based work. Then you have other folks who might say, I don't want to do the LCSW, I want to do something different. Now, just because you got your LCSW doesn't mean that all of the jobs or all the different areas that you want to work on is going to put you in that space as well. It also, because again, it's still LCSW. There's a trick that I think, not a trick, but a tip that I think might be helpful for folks in that area is that thinking about, well, how can I specialize in a certain area, population, or skill set? Now, that could mean a couple of different things. That could mean a certificate. That could mean getting trained in a certain intervention. That could mean specialize in a certain population. That can mean getting an additional, training or, a certificate or intervention that could be helpful for you to pair with the LCSW, to pair with the MSW. That can mean looking at different areas, right? Looking at different disciplines, right? Where, you have MSWs who are lawyers, right? And have an MSW plus a JD, very specialized, unique experience, right? You have folks who are MSW MPH, right? In public health, very specialized experience bringing to different distinct areas. Even if you start talking about sports social work, right? Where there's sports social work certificates or sports certificates that positions you to be more of an expert and specialized in this area population. That is one of the things that you can do MSW post or pairing with the LCSW to make you stand out a little bit more and specialize in a unique practice, right? There are different areas and populations that require, right, a different skill set to work with said population. There are folks who are gifted at working with children and adolescents. That's not my ministry. I'll be honest with y'all. Even though I love kids and I do love working with teens and kids, that's just not the population that I specialize the most in, and I don't have the best skill set for. But I know people who love working with children and adolescents. Now, they can take that experience because they have that clinical experience or they have that experience per se, and they can turn that into a specialized skill set based upon whatever trainings they've received, whether they have a certain skill set or a different population they worked with in the past. They can specialize in that. And so a lot of times with social workers, we devalue our skill set and our experience because we think everybody got it. We just think everybody can work with children and adolescents. We just think everybody can work with substance use population. We just think everybody can work with the mental health population in certain capacities. And I know that social workers are one of the primary folks who provide mental health services, but that's not everybody's jam. That's not everybody's, skill set. Even working in crisis, right? And I'm not talking about the new crisis that has like the 24-hour crisis table. I'm talking about crisis therapy where we're doing assessments 24/7, right? That's a skill set. And some people and some therapists, social workers shy away from doing crisis assessments, assessing folks for suicide risk, assessing folks for homicide risk, assessing folks who are psychotic, things like that. They shy away from that because they've never been trained on how to do that. If you have that skill set, that is a niche skill set. So again, when you start to get the MSW, and you start to practice, that first gig is kind of getting you acclimated to the professional social work, seeing what's out there, getting the job, establishing yourself, learning about yourself, and learning about yourself professionally and personally. And then if you think you decide to get your LCSW, your job requires you to be a supervisor in social work. That's one thing you can prepare for that while also navigating different populations, different trainings, certificates, skill sets, or interventions that you want to work within. Wherever that's also looking at maybe parenting with another specialized population. Social workers are political. So we can utilize that as well as a way to get acclimated. Maybe you get involved in your local state council, you learn the state policies, local policies, and then you become an expert in those different things as a social worker. But again, how you position yourself. So I would ask these questions to yourself, and these things can change over time, right? I've shifted from, direct care to, you know, uh, supervising to teaching to speaking and providing workshops on said thing of social work, mental health practice, diversity, equity, inclusion, culture, humility, working with Black men, working with rural environments, burnout, leadership, different elements that different organizations, utilize. We don't always have to do these things in just social work or mental health. There are other disciplines out there, y'all, that could benefit our skill set. Technological, I'll say technological. Technology disciplines, right? IT, right? Medical social work or medical in that medical sphere. We have your professional and also not even professional, just talk about NFL, NBA, MLB, things like that, or collegiate level, NCAA, but on the local level, right? Where we have teams, club teams, travel teams that will benefit from our services in the community, whether that's doing therapy, psychoeducation, you name it. We undervalue the aspects of psychoeducation. And psychoeducation is just providing education around mental health, well-being, stress management to the community. People need to hear that. This thing about stress and mental health, as you see so many commercials, people talking about it all the time, this is new. It is still fresh for a lot of people. People are still, even though more awareness and advocacy has happened, and people are more comfortable talking about their mental health and stress, it is still a heavily stigmatized topic. And it's still a heavily stigmatized topic that doesn't get talked about on, job workplace environments in different areas. So also, let's also start thinking about not just always working with, within our discipline. Let's think about how can we position ourselves outside of our discipline. So here's the thing I want you to do. First, I want you to think about, what area of population that you are really passionate or interested about. Or is it an area of population or not, right? What are some other disciplines that also interest you that you wouldn't mind merging social work with? And if you're trying to build a thing, do a thing, whether that's a practice, a business, a consulting agency, workshop, speaking, who in your area or or connected with is doing just that? And that could be also in the population as well, or the area expertise that you want to get into. Do you know somebody in that area, and have you reached out to have a conversation with them, right? Have you connected with them? Have you learned from them? Have you offered your services to them, right? I told my supervisor this last week. I was like, this is an area population that you might be interested in. Offer your services or offer your skill set and experience because you bring something to the table that they don't have in that space, right? And then also think about, where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 3 years? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, next 10 years, right? And start thinking about, what that looks like for you and your family, or if you're by yourself, what that looks like for yourself. And then, map it out. Figure out how to get to that route. Research how to get to that route. Research what it's going to take to get to that aspect. And it can change. It doesn't have to be set in stone. I'm be honest with y'all, a lot of things changed in my trajectory when I thought about when I got my MSW degree and, finish. And I was like, I'm not going to get my license. I don't want to get my license. I don't want to do policy. I don't want to do private practice. I don't want to do any of these things. I want to do, I want to do policy and community-based work, or just policy and advocacy. That's what I want to do. And I'm slowly starting to get around to it now. But I've went, working in substance use, private practice. I'm teaching now. That wasn't part of the career trajectory initially. All those things were not part of it. So you need to ask yourself what you see yourself doing right now, and then give yourself leeway for other doors and opportunities to open up, so you can walk through them, or you can say, I don't want to do that as well. But this is all about networking, relationships, positionality, and creating an outline and map as far as where you want to go. We are in every sector of the disciplines that you see out there, and in pretty sure form and fashion. A lot of times, a lot of these positions, if they're not direct care, they're not going to say social worker. So I think that's the missing piece as well, is that some of these things that you're looking for, they're not going to be labeled as social worker, but your skill set and your experience fits the actual job duties and descriptions. It fits the actual thing that person is looking for. And again, the specialized experience helps position you for other unique opportunities that you would love, but don't discount your actual regular MSW skill set and experiences, because a lot of companies don't know the full scope of what we do and what we're capable of doing. Whether that's needs assessment, brokering services, facilitating, care coordination, case management, assessment, training, one-on-one, group, you name it. So don't discount that either. But also put that with some specialized experience, whether that's population intervention skill set, certificate, training, secondary degree, doctorate degree, license, all those different things. So I just want to share that. Let me know what you think. Hopefully this gives some little bit of a foundation, and some guys a little bit is all over the place a little bit, but hopefully it made sense and give you some things to think about as you are maneuvering through your social work career journey. I hope to see you out there. And if you got questions, feel free to let me know and hit me up. Like, share, subscribe to the podcast. Like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know what you think. Make sure you share with three of your friends, families, colleagues, homeboys, homegirls, partners. If this episode resonated with you, share it with them, and y'all have a conversation about it, man. All right. Until next time, man. Y'all take care. Peace. Talk to you.